First on film and entertainment, and with me is Peter Kraus. I'm Alex First, and it is an exciting time of the year. Happy Hanukkah to all our Jewish listeners. I hope that the year ahead will be much more positive than what we've experienced in recent times, and our hearts go out to anybody and everyone that's been affected on either side of the conflict. And having said all of that, it's just horrible to behold what's happening to the world, Peter Kraus. Yeah,
it is. Good morning, Alex. And yes, it is just awful. Hopefully, there'll be some sort of peace agreement, and the hostages will be returned as soon as possible.
Absolutely, it's just diabolical. Week after week, we speak about it. The world speaks about it, and unfortunately, whether there's going to be a solution or whether there'll just be a disquieting type of peace. Whatever it is, we don't want any more lives lost. That's the key to all of this. And we also don't want to be pigeonholed as the enemy, which is, the PR war is an important part of war these days. And the mistruths that are being spoken, I mean, that is deeply concerning, Peter, yeah?
Yeah, it is.
Now, let's talk about how exciting it is and why it's exciting. This time of the year, we are shown the films that are going to be Oscar nominated. I know the Oscar nominations haven't been announced, but a lot of the films we are seeing, we were very fortunate, you and I, Peter, to attend the Nova Christmas party.
Yep.
On, what date was it? Thursday? Thursday. It was last
Thursday.
week. Yeah, and I mean, hats off to Natalie Miller. She's been doing it brilliantly for so long, a doyen of the film industry. When I started, it was she and also Alan Finney. They were the two who were particularly influential, and my heart goes out to both of them. You're around the same era, so were they the two big influences on you as a young critic?
Yes, I agree with that. I think both of them, because of the Longford Cinema that Natalie ran, and Alan being so important with the Australian Film Institute, and then actor and so on. Yes, absolutely.
Now, Natalie, in her short address ahead of seeing a really fine movie, talked about the imminent opening of another cinema chain. Is it Brunswick? Did she mention? I've just gone blank.
East Brunswick, yes. Yeah. 6 screens.
6 screens, wonderful. She with a partner, and I'm not sure. Do you know the date in terms of it opening early next year?
I think Christian actually said it was January 11th. They pushed it back from just before Christmas. So, and it's meant to be a combo of food and film. So
that's going to be nice. That'll be lovely for people. I don't live anywhere near there. You live with very, very thin walls wherever the walls go up. It's cardboard, isn't it? I think cardboard walls.
That is correct. Absolutely. Right. Yes. Straight from the forest.
Yeah, haul them on the back of a pickup truck that's about 103 years old. Is that what it's all about, Peter?
You've seen my car.
Exactly. Quite so. No, that's right. That is wonderful. So we're seeing some magnificent movies. I should say, because people, it's interesting. The gravitation is towards Boxing Day. Now, do you think Boxing Day is still, like, does everybody rush out? Those who are not going to the cricket, those who are not going to the Boxing Day sales, do they all rush out to go and see movies on Boxing Day? Is that what we're supposed to believe?
Yes, because that seems to be still the biggest box office period, from Christmas Day, Boxing Day to New Year's. But because of the actors' strike and because of the changes in release patterns and so on, I think some films were pushed back to January and so on. So that might increase the box office in January.
Well, just for the sake of being true to what you've just said, let's talk about the movies in brief terms that are opening. Now, we've seen a number of these, and there'll be some embargoes, so we can't talk about them quite yet. But there's Anyone But You, which is a Sony release. There's Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which is Warner Brothers. Migration, which I believe is an animated feature from Universal. Poor Things, which was the movie that Peter and I saw on Thursday. Extraordinary movie from Disney Studios. Wish is an animated feature from Disney. One Life. Now, I've already spoken with you about that, Peter. That I'm not sure. Have you seen that yet? That was
yes, I have seen it. Yeah.
The opening of the British Film Festival. A really strong film. So Anthony Hopkins one of the featured actors in that. That opens officially on Boxing Day after having been in the British Film Festival. 2 tickets to Greece from Palace, and the new Riellen movie from Sharmel Films, Coup de Chance. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 movies. That's about par for the course, 7 or 8 usually each year.
Yeah,
that's
right.
So, and then you've got Next Gold Wins on the 1st of January from Disney, and you've got Dream Scenario, the Nick Cage movie. I'm not sure you've seen that yet, Peter, because that was during the day screening. I
have seen it.
Oh, you have seen it? Oh, terrific. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, they're the films, and then you've got Ferrari, which is Enzo Ferrari's life story, if you like, from Roadshow on the 4th of January. Night Swim, which we haven't yet seen, from Universal, and this coming week we're going to see The Boys in the Boat from Warner Brothers. So they're the movies that you can look forward to. A number of those, I would imagine, will be featured prominently in some of the awards, especially Poor Things, which is quite a remarkable movie. But let's start today with a film that if you've got Netflix, you'll be able to see this from the 20th of December. So what's that? Today's the 10th, so we're talking about 10 days away, not bad at all. But if you want to see it in the cinema, you can see it right now. And I'm talking about Maestro. Now, this is an important movie in as much as it's the follow-up for Bradley Cooper as a director. And, I mean, he made quite a splash, both in terms of starring and directing A Star Is Born. Hard to believe that's now 5 years ago. Wow. And this is a movie, Maestro, about Leonard Bernstein and his wife. And it's impressionistic rather than sort of a biography in the traditional sense of the word. It's interesting because there are a number of directors that were associated with this. I think initially Martin Scorsese and then Steven Spielberg. And then when Spielberg pulled out due to his work schedule, basically Brad Cooper took it on. And he also wrote the piece with Josh Singer. And Josh Singer is quite an acclaimed writer. He was responsible, among other movies, for Spotlight. So it's got really strong pedigree. Talking about pedigree, is there a better actor going around than Carey Mulligan? We don't see a lot of her. When we see her, she's always excellent. And between her and Brad Cooper, you've got really stars, absolute stars, who are masters of their craft. This is 129 minutes in duration. It's M-rated. And I suppose there isn't an American conductor-composer that would be better known than Leonard Bernstein. Would there be, Peter? I mean, he sort of was fated the world over for his talent. When we're talking about, he's a pianist, a teacher, an author, as well as a conductor and composer. And for those who don't recall when he passed away, again, hard to believe, 23 years ago, 1990, he died. He was born in 1918. So he lived to the age of 72. And he enjoyed a really close and loving relationship with his wife, who was a Costa Rican Chilean actress called Felicia Montelegre Con, C-O-H-N. So there was Jewish heritage there. She was noted for her theatrical roles on and off Broadway and for her performances in televised dramas. But behind the scenes, everything was not always rosy. And despite fathering 3 children with Montelegre, who doted on Bernstein, he was more attracted to men than women. He and his wife had an understanding, but there were times when acting upon his impulses caused her frustration and distress. But the pair always connected on an intellectual level, and they did enjoy many happy times together. So this is an artistic retelling of their lives, primarily focused on him. And it starts as Bernstein gets his big break, at the age of 25. That's when, due to circumstances, he steps in at the last moment without rehearsal to lead the New York Philharmonic at Carnegie Hall. And it made national headlines the following day. Bernstein simply loved being around people. He couldn't even countenance, and I found this rather interesting, he couldn't even countenance having the toilet door closed. Right? So he was adored, he was feted wherever he went, and he loved being the centre of attention. Maestro paints Bernstein as a man in constant motion, this bundle of pent-up energy. There's a scene towards the end of the film which shows him conducting an orchestra in a cathedral with wanton abandon. It's draining. full body and mind experience, and it goes to the core of Bernstein's being. And as I mentioned, this is the follow-up to A Star Is Born. It's art house in style. It's as much about look and feel, and I think you can read into that bohemian lifestyle as it is about substance. There's a quote at the beginning of the movie which I think sums it up very well as a film as well, because Bernstein said, a work of art does not answer questions, it provokes them, right? It doesn't answer them, it provokes them. And Cooper and Mulligan make this mesmeric and insightful combination. The start and development of their love story, it's so natural. Their first kiss in a darkened old theatre. There's heat, there's passion, there's conviction in their collective portrayals. And Mulligan ensures that Mrs. Bernstein is seen as no lightweight character. However, she takes more of a back seat. Cooper's the show pony. He plays Bernstein as a man constantly looking for affirmation, which he inevitably receives. Then 45 minutes in, the mood shifts appreciably as Mrs. Bernstein calls out her husband for, quote unquote, getting sloppy with an outward display of affection for the same sex. And later, he addresses rumours, again in quotation marks, with his eldest daughter. It's a really perfect vehicle to showcase Bernstein's intoxicating music. Maestro features really well-known works of his, as well as more niche pieces. And visually, Matthew Libatique, who was responsible for cinematography on The Whale, among many, many others, in his repertoire, captures an affluent lifestyle with distinction. I mentioned stylistically, it's impressionistic as a film, moves from black and white to colour to reflect time shifts. The start of it's effectively in black and white, and then it moves to colour. Maestro then really is a feast for the senses, Peter. I reckon it's going to hold particular appeal to those with an artistic bent, and it's in cinemas now, available on Netflix on the 20th of December. Did you appreciate it, and do you agree with me that it's not going to be an everybody's film?
I very much liked the film and appreciated it a great deal because of its impressionistic, as you say, approach to Bernstein's life.
Rather than Bernstein. I mean, again, did they say? I thought they said Bernstein, and maybe I'm mistaken.
No, I was listening very carefully. It was always Bernstein.
Lovely. Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
I mean, when you think of a stein of beer, S-T-E-I-N, you don't say Steen.
No. But names can often get mispronounced or mangled or whatever. Spelling of names is an interesting one too. But in this case, right, it is like beer stein.
Okay. Stein, yeah. Okay. So, look, I was very impressed by this. In fact, it was Spielberg and Scorsese who both approached Cooper to direct the film because they were so impressed with the way he directed A Star Is Born.
But I did think that it was going to be initially directed by my reading of it suggested that it was going to be a Steven Spielberg film, but then he found there was conflicts, etc.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's only then that basically Cooper said to what's his name? Steven Spielberg. What's his name? Sorry. That this is my take on it. I've really got a good handle on it, and he very much does. There's no question about that. It's very it's highbrow stuff, though, isn't it? I mean, the intellectual rigor in this movie.
Well, yes, but it's also a love story. And I think that's where people will connect with it because it does focus to some extent on his music, but it does dismiss some of his key compositions, including the music he composed for On the Waterfront, which is mentioned but not even heard. And there's a few other compositions he did. Although I must commend Cooper for only having Bernstein's music in the film.
Yes.
There's no other compositions or anything like that.
No, I think that's it's a really brilliant representation. It's amazing how, because there was never any question about Brad Cooper's talent as an actor, but before he did A Star Is Born, nobody knew he could direct, and with that, that was a wonderful piece of work as well. And it's fascinating that this has got a music bent. Whilst he obviously was aware of West Side Story and as a youngster, Brad Cooper, I believe he didn't really have a good handle on. He had to do a lot of research, and that research really is shown up in this movie, isn't it, Peter?
That's exactly right. But don't forget, the shallow sequence in Star is Born
Yes.
is what convinced Spielberg to have Cooper as the director of Maestro. So he knows music as well and understands them. And I like the way he uses a sort of almost swirling camera work in a lot of the scenes, but also he uses 2 aspect ratios. So he's a bit like Wes Anderson. So he starts and finishes with the normal 35mm aspect ratio, and then most of the film is in the Academy 4.3, which is sort of slightly boxed in sort of ratio. And,
because I was so carried away by the movie, I wasn't even cognizant of that. Was that aspect in both the color and black and white, or was it?
Yes, it was. It was the Academy ratio. It first morphs into that in black and white, and after we've seen the widescreen version of the first sequence of the film, and then it stays in black and white in that Academy ratio until it then just morphs into color because what happens is what Cooper has done is this film is about snapshots. It's about different time periods, so it's not necessarily a continuous narrative. It's a narrative that has particular time periods and segments attached to it, and I think that's what also makes it quite effective. And I must say, the way he treats Bernstein's bisexuality is actually quite effective, because it shows how Bernstein was torn between his sort of male and female desires, etc. And
do you think he was torn? I actually got the impression that, I've got an understanding, I can do what I want. As I said, I thought that Carey Mulligan plays the back seat role and plays it extraordinarily well. But she's somebody who doesn't want to necessarily. She's not backward in coming forward, but she was happy to be behind the scenes and so on. But clearly, there's a pivot point in the movie whereby she's had enough. Yeah, and I really don't want to spoil the surprise for people, but when she calls him out, she also then has an epiphany later on about, is it he that needs to change or she that needs to change? Yeah, right, in terms of mindset. And so I was thinking it goes to colour. What, about 45 minutes in, something like that?
Something like that. Yes.
And then does the aspect ratio go to traditional cinema screen when it goes to colour? That was what
No, it stays at Academy ratio until the very last scene of the film, which I think was that conducting in London.
Was that at the convent at the cathedral?
Yes.
That was if there's one scene in the movie that sums up his energy, that is it. Wasn't it an extraordinary scene?
It was. In fact, he studied Bernstein's conducting methods, and especially conducting at that cathedral. And that was shot in one take.
Wow. Really?
Yes.
The other aspect, that they've aged him very well. They've aged both of the actors very well. I thought. Do you know which cathedral that is in? Because it's stunning. I think I've seen it, but I just don't recall. I honestly didn't look it up either. Do you know?
No, it's one I've not heard of. So I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So maybe I haven't seen it. I presume you've you've gone to Europe many times, but the churches, the cathedrals are amazing. Architecturally, they're amazing. The height in them, and the space and the windows and so on. And I thought that was one of the most intoxicating scenes in a movie I've seen this year. Yeah, it was really special, wasn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The whole thing was very well directed, and what also impressed me is that at the end credits, we see see and hear two things. One is the real Leonard Bernstein. And secondly, most of the music he composed for Candide, which is such a fantastic score, is featured in the end credits. So hats off to Cooper for doing that. I just wish he had included a bit more of some of his earlier music, including, as I mentioned, On the Waterfront and so on.
He's never seen without a cigarette in his hands.
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, the Quit campaign really needs to get onto this movie. It is just, it's horrible to see. As a vehement non-smoker, I understand it's reflecting a time period. I've spoken to you about this before, Peter, that when I go along to the theatre, so often in an enclosed space, they smoke. And it drives me nuts because it stinks. And I know that these are herbal cigarettes, but
yes,
the jury's out on whether they're dangerous as well. So they're imperiling their lives as actors potentially, and they're imperiling our lives as people who go along and see theatre without wanting to get a gobful. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean,
they don't contain anything carcinogenic, those herbal
really?
cigarettes. So,
really?
Yeah, no, they're quite safe because they're used a lot in movies and so on. And I don't think there's any problem with them.
Well, but I don't. Can you think of a movie where they've smoked more? I can't, than Maestro.
Oh, my goodness. Romance and Cigarettes comes to mind immediately.
Okay. Well, but was there a character that didn't smoke in Maestro? Like, I mean, it was kind of like a rite of passage, wasn't it?
It was. But unfortunately, there's the sad aspect of that in terms of Carey Mulligan, yeah.
Well, not just Carey Mulligan.
Her character, I mean.
No, yeah, but no, not just. It was also, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Bernstein die of mesothelioma, which again could have been contributed to by cigarettes?
Yes.
I might be mistaken, but because he died relatively young at 72, as mentioned at the outset. It's interesting how much conversation this movie does spark because there are so many aspects to it, right? Where we've talked about the artistic representation, the cinematography. He's one of the great cinematographers, Matthew Liberty. You look at his CV. Oh my golly, it's huge. He did Black Swan, didn't he? I think. From
yes,
amongst other things, and it's interesting because I mean, let's be honest, they lived a pretty luxurious lifestyle, didn't they?
Yes.
It shows that off so nicely. It's and you've got the outdoor shots, you've got the indoor shots, they're equally compelling. The home that they share, that going onto sort of open fields, all of that stuff is very, very special. I got to say that I got an incredibly favourable impression of Felicia Montilgre Con, the Carey Mulligan character. She really is incredibly patient and very talented, seemingly in her own right. Because had you seen any of her work? I hadn't. I wasn't familiar with her as an actor.
Carey Mulligan. Oh, in an education.
No. I'm talking about the actor.
Oh, Felicia.
Felicia, yeah. No.
No. I hadn't heard of her.
No. Mulligan is one of my favourites of all time. Whenever I see her, I long to see pictures that. It's interesting. There's a number of actors that can assume the identities of the characters they're playing, and that's the sign of a great actor. There's many, but our own Cate Blanchett is a good example of that. Nicole Kidman's another one. We're looking at this, and there are so many, but Carey Mulligan is at the top of the pile. She's just fabulous. So, I don't. This is not going to be a big audience film, though. It's only in selective cinemas, and as I mentioned, it's going to go to Netflix on the 20th. I'd be fascinated. I suppose some people will see it because of Brad Cooper, and I wonder whether if you're expecting a mainstream performance, then you might be surprised. Correct?
Yes, I think so, but I don't know. I think this film has certain qualities that will see it hang around, even though it's going to Netflix. And it's interesting to compare it with.
I think it's going to Netflix, but I just what I'm saying is I don't think it's going to have broad base appeal.
I'm not so sure about that.
Well, I just think the impressionistic nature of it will not appeal to some people. That's what I'm getting at. Some people like impressionism, and others find it hard to take.
Well, as I said, it is also a love story. It's also Bradley Cooper, who does appeal to a lot of people, and I think the storytelling is fairly strong. So, and a bit like Tar, which also ended up having a reasonably strong audience, a wider audience before it went to streaming.
Yeah.
I think people will gravitate to Maestro because they'll appreciate, even though it might be, as you say, perhaps for a slightly older audience, but that doesn't matter. I think it does have a lot of mainstream appeal.
Well, I saw it only on Friday, and it was a very old audience. And that's fine. I think that Tar is probably more accessible than this, to be honest. That's my take. I found it accessible because I really related to it, but I hope it does well because it really deserves to. It's a terrific film. So what are you going to give it out of 10? Maestro, M-rated, 129 minutes.
Oh, yes. Excellent film, 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. I was giving it 8.5-ish, maybe 9. So, yeah, similar sort of territory. So it makes it one of the big films of the year in terms of scores, and hopefully we'll hear more about it. But good on Netflix for sort of, obviously they're pouring a lot of money into making really good films. I'm not sure what the budget on this would have been, but it would not have been slight. And I mean, how long will it take for streaming services to overtake the major studios in terms of Oscar wins, right? Because, I mean, there seems to be more and more. I was delighted that we had the Barbie Oppenheimer phase of 2023 where people went back to cinemas because it's wonderful to see something on the big screen. But obviously the streaming services are a real threat to the major studios, aren't they, in terms of bringing out Oscar-nominated films?
That's absolutely right. I mean, Amazon is doing this, and Apple, etc. So yes, but again, that's fine because that means they're investing in quality films, in good scripts, so that they get a cinema release first before they then go on the streaming services.
Exactly. So you are on J-Air, 88 FM, 24 hours a day programming. There's intelligent listening, hopefully, and a bit of music as well to keep everybody entertained. If you want to be a member, don't hesitate. Go to jair.com.au and you are going to then be able to subscribe for $54 a year. So that is a good thing to do. j-air.com.au is your site to enjoy the listening and express your appreciation with a few coins, so to speak. Now, I wanted to go from the sublime to the ridiculous. Can we do that, Peter?
Go for it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting that we've talked about a really highly intelligent movie and that is, well, it is for the intelligentsia in Maestro. And we go from that to Dix the Musical. Now, I'm pleased that this is an audio rather than visual representation because there are some lines and some language that's used in Dix that is going to mortally offend people who are not at the right proclivity, Peter. And this is only an 86-minute movie. It's rated MA for very good reason. And, well, it is quite some movie. I mean, you've got to approach Dix the musical with an open mind. If you do, you can revel in it. Otherwise, you could be shooting off an angry email to the Australian Classification Board for having the temerity to even consider registering the movie. Well, it is that sort of film. There's no question. And look, the guy who directed Borat and Bruno, Larry Charles, he can hardly be accused of playing it safe. And so it is with this one. It's a hard-swearing, politically incorrect comedy which will delight those sick and tired of woke, right? So it's the cinematic adaptation of a musical stage play, and I can't even pronounce the first word of that musical stage play on this family program, Peter. Let's just call it Effing Identical Twins, the musical. That was the name of it.
Yep.
I'm sure you didn't see it in the theatre, did you?
No, I just missed it.
By that much, yeah. I'm not sure that it's actually played here in Australia. Anyway, I don't think it has. It's by Aaron Jackson and Josh Sharp. And let's just say they are not backward in coming forward. So it features an off-the-wall script in which those two, Jackson and Sharp, fill the principal roles, and they play twins Trevor and Craig. Now, good old Trevor and Craig were separated at birth, neither of whom know that the other actually exists. And individually, they're highly sexed, heterosexuals, and they're mighty successful in business. When their two companies merge, they meet one another for the first time since they were in the crib. And without knowing who the other is, they are immediately competitive. Once the penny drops, though, that they are in fact brothers, they become inseparable. Both were brought up by individual parents, and they hatch a plan for their folks to get together again. Only, well, as the saying goes, the best laid plans of mice and men. And it turns out that well, how do I put this nicely? They've got Fruit Loops for parents, Peter. That's they do. Absolutely. They've got iced Vovos on top of Fruit Loops. Now, the mum, whose name is Evelyn, played by Megan Mullally, speaks to inanimate objects. Of course, yes. She's wheelchair bound, and she. There's no nice way of saying this. She lost her vagina. Very careless of her, Peter. I kid you not. So the dad. Now, at this point, I think a lot of people are switching off the radio. Right? Please don't. Please persevere. Now, the dad, whose name is Harris, played by Nathan Lane, made it his life's journey to care for a pair of ugly, bizarre, caged creatures with sharp teeth. Yes, these are manufactured things. And he actually drops the news that he's gay. This whole exercise in togetherness is overseen by a homosexual Asian figure that calls himself God. So he's a character all of his own as well. Very colourful. Anyway, if all of what I've said sounds like deranged claptrap, it is. But it's also ridiculously funny at times. It's forever pushing the envelope. It's always done tongue-in-cheek. And this is a movie that sets out to offend and provoke. Musically, I thought the songs through which part of the plot unfolds are quite melodious. I think some of them are really strong. The talent, by the way, has a wow of a time. I didn't think I'd be saying that having given the description that I have, but somehow there's an elegance about most of Lane's portrayal, even though his monster's first approach is extreme, to say the least. And that includes deliberately spitting into the creatures' faces. Now, I wouldn't call that elegant. You will get context in terms of that remark about spitting into the faces of the creatures if you go along and see the movie. Megan Mullally, well, she plays up her demented characterisation. I quite like the boys' one-upmanship, but their bonding reaches furious heights. God is portrayed by Bowen Yang. He's never quite... God, I don't think, has ever quite looked like he has in this movie. Or is it God, he, she, it, they, whatever, a portrayal of God. I also appreciated Megan Thee Stallion's role as the twins' new feminist boss, Gloria. She won't stand for any nonsense. She's quite a powerful figure. So, yeah, what more could I say? This is a film that will polarise, pun fully intended. What do you have to say? Did Dix have you standing to attention, Peter?
Okay, moving right along. I won't cock it up. No, if we talk about the film, I mean, from the outset, it makes it very clear this is a gay musical, and it's over the top, and it's there's nothing subtle in this film at all. Although there are some very funny lines throughout the film, and Josh Sharp and Aaron Jackson have done, I think, a really clever job in making this a very outlandish, out there sort of film. With two excellent cast members, Megan Mullally and Nathan Lane. It's interesting, those sewer boys, as Nathan Lane feeds them. They're actually puppets. And at the end of the film, there's an excellent post-credit sequence where we see behind the scenes and outtakes and so on, and we see the actual puppets. And obviously they used visual effects to erase the link between the puppets and the puppet masters behind them. Look, this is a very funny film. Yes, it is very offensive at times. It's also very sexual at times, and it has something to say about, I suppose, inclusion. I mean, it's the best film about identical twins that after the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. After DeVito. Yeah. So, look, there's a lot to like about this film. It's fast-moving, very colourful, very offensive, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you going to give it out of 10?
Look, I really enjoyed it. It's, I mean, it obviously is for particular tastes and so on, and it does get a little bit over the top at times, especially
really?
No, well, especially having the no, I won't even mention that.
No.
Look, I give it 7 out of 10.
7 out of 10. Okay. Yes, I'm going to give it 7 out of 10 as well. I mean, that's a pretty good mark, let's be honest, for a movie of this sort of ilk. Let's turn to another film which came out last week, The Old Oak. Now, I think we spoke about it in relation to the British Film Festival some time ago. Did we not? I can't remember.
That's correct, because that was the media screening, yes.
That was the media screening. But nevertheless, I think it's worth mentioning again now. It's MA rated. It's 113 minutes. And xenophobia is at the heart of this one. It's the 15th collaboration between the director Ken Loach and the writer Paul Laverty. Now, the director said this is going to be his last film because he's, well into his 80s, is he? Something of that nature?
82, I think.
Right, okay. Look, whether it is indeed, only time will tell. But the title, by the way, it's the name of a pub in the northeast of England, which is a popular watering hole that's seen better days. And it's operated by a down-to-earth publican called TJ Ballantyne. Dave Turner plays him, who's struggling to make ends meet, like most residents of the impoverished town. It's never recovered since the demise of the mining industry. And we're talking at 2016, by the way. You've got an influx of Syrian refugees that's not welcomed. And that adds pressure. It changes the dynamic. One of the refugees is a respectful young woman called Yara, played by Ebla Mary. She speaks English very, very well. And she learned the language while volunteering to help foreign nurses as she and her family lived in a refugee camp for a couple of years after escaping her war-torn nation. Her father, who was a tailor, was taken by the state-sponsored militia and is now missing, presumed dead. Yara's most prized possession is actually the camera that her father gave her. And when she exits the bus on arriving in her new home, the camera's taken, toyed with and broken by an outspoken local who's upset that she's taken his photo from the bus window. And that sets in train a chain of events that sees kind-hearted but determined Yara interact with and befriend TJ Ballantyne, the publican. And I should say, eventually many others in town as well. And in doing so, TJ Ballantyne cops the ire of many of the bar's regulars, including a mate that he went to school with. And this fallout bubbles over after TJ agrees to fix up the pub's shabby back room, which has laid dormant for 20 years. And the purpose of doing so is to facilitate integration. But that comes at a cost. And as the movie unfolds, we find out more about Yara's family and TJ's own personal struggles. It's gritty, it's working class. That describes Ken Loach's body of work. It's a movie that tugs at the heartstrings. It's presenting both hardship and hope. I thought the key characters were very well established. Dave Turner, quite a natural as a man who has had to turn his life around, but nearly didn't make it. Although I've got to say to you, Peter, and I remember mentioning this to you when we saw the screening, I struggled to reconcile that narrative thread with the empathetic soul that we see. The fact that he was, a different man altogether. I found that hard. Anyway, Ebla Mary makes a favourable impression as the measured Syrian who wants the best for everyone. Hers is a rather low-key portrayal of a woman who's experienced a great deal of pain and heartbreak. Claire Rogerson impressed me as the enthusiastic Laura. She works with Yara and TJ to propagate the Syrians' integration into the community. And look, whilst I did appreciate and was quite moved by The Old Oak, this is where you and I might differ, but I could feel myself being manipulated. I could foretell the chess pieces being shifted for dramatic effect, which I wish I couldn't, because the best movies allow me to just go on the journey without being conscious of going on the journey. Still, I wouldn't say you should take that to mean I question the film's intent or the focus on the evocative subject matter. I applaud that. It remains emotionally wrought, The Old Oak, throughout, and it does carry a message of the benefits of integration and solidarity. So a bit of a mixed bag for me in The Old Oak. Did you have any concerns similar to mine or not?
No, I didn't. I accepted the publican's character, that he has changed and wants to fit in with the community, etc. Despite his past, I didn't find that a problem. And yes, Ken Loach is such a working class focused filmmaker, and his films always have a social conscience. To some extent, he tries to have a positive arc in his films so that there's some sort of hope or redemption or whatever for the people in his films. And I think that works very well in The Old Oak, especially bringing these two disparate communities together. And he is very critical of this older community that is so entitled and feels as if any foreigners or refugees or whatever are going to disrupt them and shouldn't be there and so on. And he finds a way of trying to look at that reconciliation aspect, and I think he does that quite effectively. So, no, I really enjoyed this film. I think it's another excellent film from Ken Loach, and he is such a good filmmaker insofar as and one of the few that does look at working class and downtrodden sort of existences and trying to make a positive energy out of those, and to give messages to audiences about understanding these sort of perspectives. So I was very impressed with The Old Oak, and I hope he does make another film.
Well, I hope so too. Because look, it's one of those things that obviously you've got to have the energy to be able to go from go to woe when you're making movies, and age unfortunately does get to people at some points of time. So yeah, that is the way it is. But okay, your score is probably going to be higher than mine for The Old Oak. What do you think?
Yep, really liked it. 8 out of 10 from me.
Really? Okay, 6.5 to 7 because of the reservations I had. Otherwise, a little bit. Hang on, somebody coming through your wall-painted to cardboard boxes. What's going on? You know,
they're coming to take me away.
Well, a traffic report as we go. Yes, exactly. Oh golly. Now we should we've talked about one risque movie. We should probably talk about another one, which is quite funny actually. It's called Bottoms, and this is an MA-rated movie. It also came out Thursday before the most recent one. It's 92 minutes, and it's lowbrow comedy, and it's PJ, played by Rachel Sennett, and Josie Ayo Adebiri, they're besties. They're also gay, neither popular at school. Still, PJ is ready to go with the flow, but Josie, well, she's not. She's convinced that she'll never basically have sex. And the latter has her eyes on a cheerleader called Isabel, played by Havana Rose Liu, who's dating the school's arrogant, womanizing jock called Jeff, Nicholas Galazzini. Meanwhile, PJ is taken by Isabel's statuesque and beautiful friend Brittany, played by Kaya Gerber. And as events transpire, Josie hobbles Jeff, literally hits him and hobbles him. Basically, Jeff is chasing Isabel ahead of an annual grudge footy match against the school's fierce rivals, and that's when this whole thing happens. And in defending herself in front of the school's principal, who's played by Wayne Pierre, Josie, with PJ's backing, concocts a plan to start a girls' self-defense class. Now, they also don't deny a suggestion that they spent the summer in juvie, in juvenile detention. And they win the support of classmate Hazel Callahan, played by Ruby Cruz, and later also a teacher, Mr. G, played by Marshawn Lynch, who is going through a divorce. So it is that Fight Club moves into full swing, leaving more than a few bruises, quite literally. Bad language and jive talk are par for the course in what is quite an outrageous offering. I actually thought of Booksmart and Polite Society. Did you think of any other movies while watching this?
Well, if we're talking about the director Emma Seligman, I also thought of her previous film.
Shiver Baby, yeah.
Yes.
It is the work of Seligman, and she made a huge splash with that one. She wrote Bottoms with Rachel Sennett, who starred in Shiver Baby, and Emma Seligman is also the director of this one. It's all about sex and fitting in. It's edgy, it's coarse. I think it'll delight a younger demographic. And if you think about the two women here, Seligman and Sennett, both in their late 20s, that they've tapped into the wants of those with primal needs coursing through their veins. The plotting hardly likely to appeal to Mensa graduates, though, Peter. But then it was never pitched as such. The characters are what make the narrative sing. They stumble, they fumble, and they bumble their way through their adolescence. Sennett and Edebiri are unifying forces. Sennett as PJ, the more polarising and pushier. Edebiri as Josie, more respectful and conservative. But Havana Rose Liu plays Isabel as a girl looking for meaningful connection in all the wrong places. And Kaya Gerber is, well, I'd call her a pretty adornment as Brittany. So arguably the most interesting character is Rachel Callahan. Ruby Cruz injects an air of mystery into her realisation. Nicholas Galatantzi channels the classic meathead in the jock Jeff. Wayne Pierre clearly believes in the bastardised adage, nothing exceeds like excess, in breathing life into the principle in this movie. I actually warmed to the torn figure of Marshawn Lynch as a teacher, and I actually wouldn't have minded seeing a bit more of him in the movie. It also, this movie, Bottoms, benefits from this hip and happening soundtrack. I thought that created the right vibe. So, yeah, it's MA rated for good reason. What did you think of Bottoms, Peter?
I liked Bottoms. I thought it was also very clever and...
Bottoms comes out on top, Peter.
Thank you very much. Yes. It reminded me a little bit of Heathers and a sort of a gay version of Heathers with the two young women and their plotting and scheming to have relationships and so on. So the whole lesbian focus is an interesting one. And the dumb jocks idea is also quite amusing because it's stereotypical, but it's taken to the nth degree in the latter part of the film. Look, Elizabeth Banks produced this film, amongst others, and this is, I think, a very clever and well-written film. Seligman's film, Shiver Baby, had such a great script about two women who meet at a Jewish wake and so on. It's really clever writing, and she's continued that with Rachel in this film, Bottoms. And of course, Bottoms refers to being the bottom of the heap. They are two women who are regarded as the dregs of the high school, and so they have to find a way of achieving something that will give them some sort of notoriety. And they certainly do that. Oh, yes. As the film progresses. And in fact, later in the film, it does get into a fairly violent sort of situation, which I thought I didn't quite expect, but I thought actually fitted into the broad satire that this film is going for. So yes, I liked Bottoms. I think it's a lot of fun and quite clever, and also has the credit sequence that you must stay and watch for. So many films are having these post-credit sequences that it's silly for audiences to walk out as soon as the first credits start appearing.
It's frustrating because, I mean, you're missing so much good stuff. Outtakes are particularly amusing, no question.
Yes.
What would you give Bottoms?
Look, I was tossing up between 7 and 8, but I think I'll give it 7 out of 10.
Well, there you go. I did toss up between 7 and 8, and I gave it a 7.5. See, that's the midway point, Peter, right? Okay. Good man. Okay. MA rated, 92 minutes in duration. We should probably finish by mentioning I don't know, it's that sort of good sort of film to finish on because of its family. Did you see the original Trolls? You know, they sort of it's a franchise. And did you see the original when that came out?
Yes, I have. I've seen all three now.
Ah, yes, exactly. I mean, I didn't think I'd like this much as much as I did. I actually enjoyed it. I'm talking about Trolls Band Together is the name of the movie. The five Troll brothers were once part of a highly successful boy band called Brozone, but that one came to an inglorious end. And now all these years later, getting the group together again is the only way out for one of the guys who has actually been kidnapped by imposters. And that's the plot. It's a colourful third film in the franchise. Started with Trolls in 2016, followed by Trolls World Tour in 2020. And it starts Trolls Band Together with a recap of why the band split. Mentioned that they came to an inglorious end. And it had everything to do with the older brother, John Dory, who's voiced by Eric Andre, his demanding ways and also his search for perfection. So each of the bros then went their own way. And the youngest of them, called Branch, voiced by Justin Timberlake, left to care for their grandmother. And he basically was expecting them all to be reunited, but that never happened. And now he's all grown up, living his best life with his dedicated girlfriend, who's a gregarious overtalker called Poppy, voiced by Anna Kendrick. She has no idea of Branch's past, but that changes when, out of the blue, he receives an unexpected visit from his oldest brother, John Dory. In fact, it comes in the middle of the nuptials between Poppy's best friend, Bridget, voiced by Zooey Deschanel, and King Gristle, Christopher Mintz-Plasse. Dory gives Branch the shocking news that the brother that Branch was closest to, his name's Floyd, voiced by Troye Sivan, is being held captive and bit by bit drained of his musical talents, as if that's something you can drain. But anyway, the nefarious act has been perpetrated by the hottest new duo going around, a brother and sister act called Velvet, Amy Schumer. It's Velvet and Veneer. Velvet voiced by Amy Schumer and Veneer by Andrew Rannells. Probably the best way to understand this brother and sister duo, Velvet and Veneer, is to think Milli Vanilli, right, when they're impersonating singers. They've trapped Floyd, that brother that Branch is closest to, in a blue diamond, and they drain his musical ability every time they sing. The strength of the diamond can't be shattered unless all five trolls are in sync, and that's going to take quite some doing. John Dory, with Branch and Poppy already in tow, moves to collect his other bros, Bruce, Dovey Diggs and Clay, Kid Cudi, before mounting a rescue mission. And their method of transport? Now, Peter, I dare you to try that. Armadillo. Can you call your local armadillo, please? Right?
I'm over it.
Yeah, very good indeed. So, okay, and they're driven there by the diminutive Tiny Diamond, Kenan Thompson, who does indeed sparkle. But is it a trap? So that's the question that is asked. It also must be noted along the way, Poppy learns about a long-suppressed family secret when Viva, Camilla Cabello, steps into her life. And another of note in the cast is Velvet and Veneer's exploited but smart personal assistant, Crimp, Zosha Mamet. The direction is never in doubt, the family-friendly journey well worth taking, and you can see the film in isolation. It still hangs together. You don't need to have seen the earlier two. I kind of appreciated the life lessons the movie dished out in quite an entertaining way, especially the trajectory of several key characters that really grow and mature. Full of movement, colour, adventure and spark, real energy about it. I think children will relate to that. Not without humour and byplay. Rainbow palette is a bit of a Technicolor dream, and it also thrives on its musical choices. They're fabulous. Many hits, up-tempo, pop score, real plus, couldn't get enough of it. Based on Good Luck Trolls, created by Thomas Dam. Film written by Elizabeth Tippett, also wrote Trolls World Tour. Directed by Walter Dorn, who was responsible for the previous two installments, so there's consistency. Co-direction from Tim Heitz. Good one for the young ones. And we haven't got a lot of time, Peter, but did you enjoy it or not?
I did. I think young children will enjoy it. And I also like the satire that's in the film for adults about setting up boy bands and in sync with Justin Timberlake in there and all that, his voice, etc. So I think on both levels, it's a pretty good family film for the holidays.
Yeah, exactly. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. I thought it was nice. What about you?
Yeah, I gave it 6 out of 10, but it's good. Yeah.
No, it's good. It's worthwhile. Folks, that is it. Peter's done himself proud. He hasn't disagreed with me too many times today. And next week, you can always wait for next week, and maybe it'll be a different proposition. Pete, thanks so much, mate, for your input today, and I look forward to doing it all again with you in the very near future, in 7 days, in fact.
Yes, thanks, Alex. All the best. Goodbye, everyone.